morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to be here together with all of you and to work together with the Mongolian Renewables Industry Association, the UN, all the sponsors to organize this event. I also want to thank you all for being here because it's a really important time for us all to exchange ideas on the transformations underway in the energy sector. And to talk about what we can all do together to chart an energy transition here in Mongolia. One that promotes synergies amongst the environmental, economic, and social challenges facing the country. Okay, well, I will just keep talking since we have some IT difficulties. So globally, there's a revolution underway in the energy sector. The need to address climate change and rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions to limit the most dangerous effects of global warming is one of the main drivers of the shift from a fossil fuel-based energy system to one that uses and relies on renewable energy resources. Technology changes and rapid reductions in technology costs are providing the foundation for energy transitions. And the transition processes themselves are supported by market-driven growth in new technologies for renewable energy, for energy efficiency, digital technologies that help manage supply and demand, and accelerate electrification of energy end uses like transportation. The energy transformation is a response to an integrated set of challenges. Increasing demand for energy services due on the one hand to population growth and economic growth, but on the other hand as a result of switching to using more energy as a fuel for end uses. Providing access to modern energy services to the hundreds of millions of people around the world that are unserved or underserved and lack access to modern energy services. Around 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from the energy sector. Thus, the need to rapidly reduce and eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from the energy sector is one of the key challenges. Additionally, there's a need for energy systems themselves to become more resilient to future shocks and environmental, economic, and geopolitical issues. Finally, there's a need to really integrate new value chain participants into the energy sector as consumers also become energy producers themselves. At the end of 2021, over 3,000 gigawatts of renewable energies have been installed globally. In the last 10 years, growth of renewables in installed capacity outpaced fossil fuels. This has been driven in large part by dramatic reductions in the cost of renewable energies. Solar and wind are now cheaper than fossil fuel alternatives in a majority of cases. For policymakers and corporate leaders for that matter, this transformation poses two main challenges. On the one hand, you have to manage the transition and the associated risks. And on the other hand, proactively invest in the new energy economy. It requires long-term planning to think through the phase down of coal power plants and the shift away from coal mining, and prepare people for new jobs in the energy sector and alternative economic activities, all the while creating an attractive investment climate for green infrastructure investments and to incentivize behavior change amongst people. These processes also need to be participatory and engage the different actors, from government partners, private sector, communities, and international partners. So what does this global transformation mean for Mongolia? And how can we work together to chart a just energy transition in Mongolia? I want to share some initial ideas on key elements, and I really look forward to further discussions with you all over the next day and a half about the elements that I propose here, but also your ideas and suggestions about what the key issues are for the energy transition here in Mongolia. One of the first things I want to highlight, and I think the other presenters also highlighted, is the need to put energy efficiency first. Renewable energy gets a lot of attention, but improving energy efficiency is equally important in the energy transition. Mongolia's NDC already prioritizes energy efficiency measures on both the supply side and the demand side, but there's even more that can be done. For example, in building sector, a shift from C-level energy efficiency to A-level energy efficiency would save around 50% of the building's energy demand. There's many opportunities to further save energy. The change in tariff is also an important signal, and there'll be new opportunities for industrial energy efficiency as well. The second element of the transition is to a plan for a longer-term shift in energy generation. The current target to increase renewable energy capacity to 30% is a great start, but actually more needs to be done. Because beyond 2030, emissions from electricity generation remain substantial in 2050 based on the current policies. Given the increasing difficulty of financing conventional energy, it's important to think through further changes. Increase the capacity and flexibility of the grid to absorb more renewable energy. To use tools like renewable energy auctions to lower the cost of renewable energies. To prioritize investments in clean heating and cooking, especially for the poorest communities here in Mongolia. And to work with international partners as well to help finance the incremental costs up front for renewable energies and cleaner technologies. The third key element of a just energy transition is to prepare the workforce for a clean energy future and reskill workers from the conventional energy sector. According to some recent research we've been doing here in Mongolia, renewable energy technologies create 1.3 times the number of jobs as equivalent investments in fossil fuels here in Mongolia. So it's a chance to create more jobs here. And the jobs require medium to high skill, and they're usually better paying jobs as well. At the same time, women don't have the same opportunities to access these types of employment opportunities. It's very important that we also support women to gain access to clean energy jobs. Currently, less than 30% of graduates from energy programs are women. So this is clearly a gap that we also need to work together to address. The fourth element is to increase the efficiency of fossil fuel subsidies. According to the IMF, in 2021, direct fossil fuel subsidies were around $73.5 million US here in Mongolia. But if we think about the negative environmental externalities of these subsidies, it's a whopping $3.6 billion US. That's $1 billion per Mongolian citizen. That's 25% of GDP. Now, these figures are not without controversy, but I think it's an important issue that we need to think about how to target fossil fuel subsidies, shift fossil fuel subsidies towards green infrastructure, and better target subsidies to shift from providing subsidies for all energy users to more targeted subsidies for the people who need it most. The fifth element of the energy transition is the need to plan for the eventual phase down of coal mining and coal exports in the longer term. In 2021, coal exports were 18.3% of Mongolia's GDP. Although coal use will continue for some time, to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, we need to achieve net zero emissions from the electricity sector by 2040. And this net zero trend has become mainstream in the last couple of years. Countries, cities, companies have all adopted renewable energy targets and net zero targets. And so this trend, I think, is inescapable. Given the importance of coal to the economy of Mongolia, it's essential to plan for the eventual phase down, to manage the risk of stranded assets, to plan for alternative economic activities, to help workers and communities that depend on the coal sector to find alternatives, and to ensure responsible close down and rehabilitation of mining sites. And last but not least, I want to highlight the importance of tapping into sustainable finance to facilitate and aid in the transition. In 2021, more than $1 trillion were raised via sustainability bonds on the international market. This is 10% of total debt financing for 2021. Similarly, the loan portfolios of some of the biggest investors are also making a shift towards green investing and sustainability. Carbon markets can also provide an additional source of investment or revenue for green infrastructure investments. And I think here in Mongolia, there are some great examples of projects that have been able to tap into the carbon markets and have a source of revenue from these markets. Globally, carbon markets are improving lately, and we expect this trend to continue. There may also be other opportunities to get international financing and support. For example, South Africa, the US, and some European countries recently struck a deal whereby the international countries will provide financial support to South Africa to help them end their reliance on coal. I know financing the energy sector and the transition is a key challenge here in Mongolia, so it's really important to make these trends work for you. The energy transition itself is not without its challenges, but we all need to partner to work together to facilitate a just transition. I didn't talk too much about GGGI, but supporting a just energy transition is a key priority for us globally and here in Mongolia. And we're working with our partner governments around the world to mobilize investments in renewable energy and energy efficiency, to plan for e-mobility, and to invest in the circular economy. We also work on policies and regulatory support to develop transition policies and plans. And we welcome the opportunity to continue to work with all of you to facilitate a just energy transition here in Mongolia. Thank you.